a sort of an obvious move for the ACO to get stuck into a GT3 only series. If they're going to do it, there's no good or bad time to do it. Now is as good a time as any, and obviously that new championship will include the LMP3 cars that we'll go on to talk about a little later in the Le Mans round only. But if they say they can get 20 cars, well, let's wait and see. I hope they're right. I think it would be an ideal adjunct to the main events alongside the Renault events we're going to see on the program for the rest of for the 26 season, and I would guess beyond. I think there's reason to be perhaps a little bit concerned about something of a kind of a GT3 war starting to kind of emerge. There's not a huge. RSRO are reminded that they don't have the monopoly on GT3.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably right. I think it's probably quite healthy. What it might inject is a bit of common sense in terms of the way in which these things are put together and funded. And I'm thinking particularly cost capping in terms of not just what the teams are spending on their cars, but what they're spending on actually entering championships. I think that's a thing that could actually come forward and make a massive you're actually encouraging.
GTC then, the championship, 20 points in the end, Johnny. The gap between TDS and their BMW Z4 and the following horde of AF Corsa Ferraris. One thing that strikes me just looking at the results now, far less, in this category particularly, far less swapping and changing of drivers throughout the year. Pretty much everybody stayed with the cars in those 5 entries that we had for the full season. But you've got to say the all-French crew of Eric Demont, Dino Lunardi and Franck Pereira did a pretty good job. Only once off the podium, 101 points to 81 for Francesco Castellacci and Stuart Hall in second place, and then only 60 points for Francesco Guedes and Mads Rasmussen. Both of those guys had a retirement, so a non-score. They had good results, they had consistent results, a fair result at the end of the day for TDS.
Yeah, very much so. I think the key to a 5-race season is scoring in all 5 races, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the podium each time. It's always going to be tough, I think, in a BMW Z4 at Imola, because that turned into, as quite rightly you would have expected, a Ferrari track. And, the BMW then just hung on to the coattails of the 3 AF Corsa Ferraris. But no retirements, 2 wins, 2 second places. And I think going into that final round at Estoril, the 3 Frenchmen were reasonably confident that a top 5 finish would just about do it for them. And speaking to Stuart Hall ahead of that race, he said we've had a half decent season, we've had a couple of wins, but just not quite performed at Silverstone. Unfortunately, going to be ruining that. Now we go into next year a 6-race championship, and you may be able to afford a retirement within that. Is that a good or a bad thing? I'm not. 4 hours of...
And that's a fair point, Graham, isn't it? When there's only 5 races, 20 hours of racing, a non-finish at the start of the season is exactly what you don't want for Stuart Hall and Francesco Castellacci. 2 wins, a second and a 4th position, and that retirement really up against a second position at the end of the season for the guys that won the championship. There's the difference right there.
Absolutely right. You literally cannot afford to stumble. And, for me, I think it's fair to say straight up front, I think the performance by TDS in GTC, albeit against pretty limited opposition, I thought was one of the standout performances for the year. I think the 3 guys did a great job. They kept their eye on the prize. There's always a degree of racing look that comes with that, but they kept the car out of trouble. They kept it more or less at the front at every race, only off the podium, as you say, John, just the once. And you can't really grumble, I can't really argue with a championship win in a 5-race championship by 20 points.
No, and congratulations to all of those. Be interesting to see where some of those teams turn up next year. Any thoughts on that, Graham, about whether these guys will continue with a GT3 car in the new Michelin Cup, or whether they will upgrade to a GTE or perhaps even a prototype and stay in the ELMS?
Well, I think the one thing I'd say about this is the one disappointing aspect of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup is that it took the competitors by surprise. I think that's a game that the powers that be have got to learn to do differently. This is their money and it is their choice. And actually, I think being surprised at a race meeting, a TF Sport, Johnny's quite right. So Tom Ferrier, very keen and coming across the ACO family, but he needed to be told by me that he couldn't enter next year. Now, that's pretty wrong as far as I'm concerned. I think there's a lesson there to be learned about making sure that your competitors and the potential future competitors are the first to hear what your proposals are, and for that matter, maybe feed into whether or not actually you're getting it right. This is a revolutionary concept, but that's the one disappointment here. I certainly think there's every reason to believe that there's going to be interest in that challenge. I think in terms of TDS, will they be back in a Z4 GT3? My guess is not, but I don't have anything more than that to offer on that front. I just hope that we can find a way on the ladder for the absolute legion of people with GT3 cars in Europe and beyond to come and find a way onto the endurance racing ladder. In answer, by the way, to the question I'm asked every single time whenever GT3 and GTC come up, no, I don't think we're going to see GT3 racing in the Le Mans 24 hours anytime soon.
No, and there's plenty of good reasons for that. That's the danger, though. What Graham's just mentioned, Johnny, that is the danger, isn't it? And you've been in the paddock with these guys all year. They've invested in a GT3 car. They are in an ACO championship, or have been this year, with potentially the opportunity to win themselves an entry at Le Mans, albeit not with that same car. But that is lucrative. And the issue is going to be that there are plenty of other GT races around the world and championships, or simply cherry-pick one-off races. And that could slightly backfire, could it not, on the powers that be for this championship. I mean, is the race on Saturday morning at Le Mans, do you think, from speaking to the guys in the championship, enough to keep those GT3 runners and cars in that championship, at least in the support category?
It's certainly a very nice carrot, isn't it, to get your car unleashed onto the full Le Mans track. And I know people like Tom Onslow-Cole last year was just happy to do that in the Aston Martin supporting race on the Saturday morning.
As I would have been, yes.
Indeed, as everybody would have been, I think. I think the ACO have actually done, up until this point, a decent job of conversing with their competitors, because that's part of the reason, part of the success of the European Le Mans Series is that they have talked to the drivers and the teams as to what they would like. We went from 3 hours to 4 hours. I think that was a big plus point. And things like balance of performance as well. They keep their ear close to the ground and look to maybe adjust that where necessary. But they have held one or two things back this year, and we've had press conferences announced that we didn't see coming at all. And yeah, maybe that is now to the detriment of this good relationship that they will have built up with the GTC runners. Tom Ferrier very interested, and then all of a sudden told he can't be in the full championship. It's going to be 2 1-hour races next year. Oh, really? Oh, that's kind of what we're doing in British GT already.
Yes, good point.
So, it's difficult, and that might come back to bite them. However, you've got that brilliant mid-season race on the Saturday morning of Le Mans.
Yeah, and that might be a big enough draw in itself. That was Johnny Palmer. I'm John Hindhaugh. Graham Goodwin, editor of dailysportscar.com, is with us as we look back on the 2015 European Le Mans Series season. We'll move to GTE now, the full ACO GT class. 10 cars throughout the season, and 8 of those full season entries, 6 of them scoring points at every round, and entries including Ferrari, BMW, Porsche and Aston Martin. So the first thing to say, Johnny, is a little more variety in terms of the machinery on show, and actually that's pretty good. That's all the major GTE manufacturers, and people say it's difficult to get hold of GTE cars. The only people missing really from there that I can see is Corvette.
Yes, sadly we didn't have a big American muscle car at any point during the season. The Aston stepping in just for Estoril, and again that was sort of an experiment, I think, wondering whether they may do the next year's season. Certainly Andrew Howard calling maybe retirement on British GT running as the outgoing champion, and very much interested in racing a GTE car on the European stage. So we'll see what happens there as far as Aston is concerned. But it was a Ferrari that was dominant. The BMW under another outgoing squad, Mark VDS, claiming they'll never race cars again. But they had a really strong end to the season with a second and a first place and ran it very close in the end after 4th position. So kind of weren't anywhere in the championship up until the end of Ricard. And yeah, the Porsche had a good start to the season. First win for Gulf Racing UK. So the spread of success was pretty even across Ferrari, BMW and Porsche.
Yeah, Ferrari taking 3 victories, BMW 1, and as Johnny rightly says, the Porsche winning in Silverstone at the first one around. Pretty solid competition, Graham, to be honest. And again, you know, the point I said to Johnny, you and I will often say, well, where are GTE cars? Where are the possibilities for people to go GTE racing if the factory won't sell cars? Well, clearly there are enough out there to make this interesting. There's a new set of regulations in the World Championship and in IMSA for next year in terms of GT or GTLM. Does that mean we might see some of the older cars making their way into this championship? And your thoughts just on the overall look of GTE in ELMS this year?
I think the answer is it's looking in rude health. It's not something we expected 2 years ago.
No.
I think with you,
this
John,
is the class I thought would struggle, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, to actually hear that we're getting close to double figures entries in GTE 2 years ago, and then to replicate that again this year, getting close to it, and at times hitting the two-figure mark, I think it's been an extraordinary achievement. It's been an entry of high quality. I think there's every reason to expect we'll see a little bit more of the same. It's a great way for teams with their Pro-Am lineups to launch a potential campaign for an entry to Le Mans 24 Hours if they're prepared to stick with it for the next couple of years, which I think exactly, by the way, Johnny was referring to Andrew Howard. I think that's exactly what Andrew and the Beach Team Motorsport team will be doing. There'll be full season in 2016. I'm sure they will put an entry in with no great expectations of getting there this in 16, but my guess is they would expect to be rewarded in 17. We've got some teams that have been around for some little while, the likes of JMW Motorsport, had a kind of quite fractured season this year. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, but didn't quite get there. Proton Competition with a high quality effort that stumbled a little because they didn't get the additional Le Mans entry that was predicated on. But, you know, the top of the shop, I think we had a standout performance. And here's something, actually, is an example of what GTC can do, because with the AT Racing team and with Formula Racing, there's 2 teams there that have graduated from GTC machinery in the European Le Mans Series. And for me, Formula Racing, I thought, were stunning throughout. They really surprised me this year. Really surprised me. If we look at the kind of the top 4 in the championship, the 86 Gulf Racing UK team just didn't quite put a championship run together. After that win. The 55 car, and that is obviously, you know, to those who are familiar with the racing, it's Duncan Cameron, Matt Griffin, and Aaron Scott, who I thought was extraordinarily good at the Red Bull Ring, for instance. But again, they just did not get a season's full of consistency together in the way that Formula Racing did. I'll admit to taking a step back and being surprised that Mark VDS actually came home as close as they did, but that's courtesy of 3 fourth-place finishes, so solid points in the first part of the season. Second at Paul Ricard, and then that very emotional win indeed in their last ever race at Estoril. Truth be told, on the performance that we saw this year from that team, and the reliability at times otherwise from the BMW, I don't think that would have been a worthy championship winner. And that's because, actually, I think the 60 Formula Racing team, not a team I knew a great deal about before the start of the season.
So let's just put this right. So Formula Racing is not just another offshoot of AF Corsa then?
Formula Racing, I think, is run by AF Corsa, but it's been the team has been together. The driving squad has been together for some little while, and I think within that there's been one of the standout talents this year in European Le Mans Series. And I'm not going to name him now because he is going to be my pick at the end of the show.
Oh, okay. Formula Racing held on at the end, Johnny. As you said before, a concerted effort from the AF Corsa number 55 car with, ultimately the 5th and 6th position, 5th at Imola and 6th position at Le Castellet was what really cost them a shot at the title. But 63 points for the 55 car in 3rd place, 79 for the BMW that came in 2nd, and just 4 points the gap at the end of the season. 2 wins, a 5th, a 5th, a 6th, and a 3rd. So, pretty good season from that Formula Racing team and from their driving talent, who, really. If we're talking about it, we've mentioned some of the names from the other teams. In the case of Formula Racing, Johnny Lawson, Michael Mack, and Andrea Rizzoli probably aren't the best known drivers in that category, in that championship.
They're far from household names, are they? In comparison to some of the other people they were up against. Andy Prio came close with his teammate Jesse Crone. The
Matt
AF
Griffin,
Corsa boy, Matt Griffin, obviously,
Adam Carroll,
well known in the UK. Adam Carroll again,
even Alessandro Perguidi. He's got a huge amount of experience.
Yeah,
the Talcanet Junior and Senior, partnership. Those are all names that people will be probably as well, if not more, familiar with than the 3 that I mentioned for the Formula Racing guys.
And I have to say, the guys at AT Racing really put on a storm at Imola. It was just an absolutely stonking race within GTE, where with about 3.5 hours gone in the race, the trajectories of all of those 5 teams just met at Variante Alta, and you had 5 cars pretty much nose to tail for the last half an hour. And fair play to AT Racing for winning that one, but it never really happened for them after that point. But yeah, the lesser known names were kind of there virtually every race. 3 podiums through the year. Those back-to-back victories in Austria and Ricard really won the title for them, and it was a close-run thing in the end. It was arguably more comfortable for them after rounds 3 and 4, but just a 4 points difference in the end between the 60 and the 52 squad.
At the end of the season, Graham, we had that news from TDS. Andy Prio drafted into that squad with support from IHG, from the hotel group, Intercontinental Hotel Group, a BMW Motorsport blessed effort, and the first time indeed that we had seen a GTE version of the Z4 anywhere outside of the States. It had all the ingredients. It just fell a little bit short, but clearly what we didn't know, or if we thought we didn't know the extent of what was going on behind the scenes, because sadly at the end of the year, a quite extraordinary outburst on the Mark VDS website from its owner.
Indeed. I think you mixed up your T's and your V's.
I did, yes. Sorry, yes. It is Mark VDS in second, yes.
It is Mark van der Straten making it clear that, I'm being very blunt. If listeners haven't read that release, you can read it on various parts of the web, but Mark van der Straten effectively saying that's it. He felt he'd been let down by various parties to do with the car racing side and would not go forward with it. But it's sad to see that team go. They've added a great deal in GT racing, particularly in Europe, over recent years. But it almost sounds cruel in the circumstances because, it was a great way to finish, what's been a proud history for that team. But that effort, for me, never hit the stride you expected it to do. Yeah. You're quite right to name check the drivers in that car, John. You're quite right to name check the fact that it's a great team with BMW Motorsports involvement there. But for me, there should really have been little doubt that with that kind of level of quality, we should have seen that car boss it, and it didn't. And I genuinely do think the points at the end just slightly flattered to see what was, a season that will have disappointed, I think, everybody involved in it.
Bigger question, what now for BMW Motorsport in terms of this championship? Because they've got a new offering in FIA GT3 spec, being the M6 Alpina. That particular car is fully homologated. Once again, though, the GTE side of things has been left hanging because they haven't homologated a GTE car. In the States, there's a GT Le Mans car which has all kinds of waivers from IMSA, but that's not an ACO-approved car. So presumably, we won't see that here. And the other question, the second part of that, Graham, is who is going to be the BMW Motorsport blessed team even if there is a GTE car for them to run?
Well, I think they've hung their colours to the GT3 without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's a huge shame. There is a vast legion, again, I've used that word for the second time on the show, of people that would love to get behind a proper BMW Motorsport effort in top-line endurance racing, and they've not had that opportunity for too long. And I think it's a mess. I'll be honest with you. You'd expect me to say that, but you know what? That's what I think, is that I think if we did have any kind of prototype efforts, any kind of GTE factory-based efforts in Europe and at Le Mans, I think it would find a huge fan base. And I'm here to say that I think it's a mistake on BMW's part with on that front, a slightly underwhelming response to the opportunity.
Interesting for me, if you look at the finishes that they had in terms of their average finish is a third.
Yep.
If you look at the guys who won 9, 10, 11, 16, their average finish is just over third.
Yep.
And yet they won the championship.
But the problem is, John, that for third you get 15 points,
correct,
and for a win you get 25. So the point being is
two wins. They had two wins.
That's exactly it. I mean, Johnny's entirely right. In a 5-race championship, you've got to score and score consistently. But if you have the opportunity to push for the win, then it makes sense to do so. And I think that's the point. There were races this year where it was blindingly obvious that BMW did not have that opportunity, whereas the Ferrari did. And that's what ultimately made the difference. And they did that not just because they've got a very strong car. We know all about the Ferrari 458 GTE's career, an astonishing career it's been in international motorsports. But they did it with, I think, some kind of pretty undiscovered driving talent.
A quick word, Johnny, if we may, about the third-place team of Duncan Cameron, Matt Griffin and Aaron Scott. An average finish of fourth over the season gives them third in the championship. A little way further back in the points, the fifth at Imola and the sixth at Slicastile at Ricard, really hurting their championship chances. That's a solid team, a team that we've seen, particularly with Matt and Duncan working together in the past. Aaron Scott, a good addition to that team and gaining some more experience for that British driver. And, I mean, not unfair to say that was kind of being run as an adjunct to a British GT campaign, and they did a pretty good job.
A very good job, yeah. I think Aaron Scott was welcome to the fold, and I expected him to be sort of somewhere between Griffin and Cameron's talent. That's what proved. But he had some outstanding races. I seem to remember one, I can't remember exactly where it was now, but that car was put to the back of the grid, and Aaron Scott drove to the front of the GT field, and it didn't take him very long to do it either. And then I
think that was the Red Bull Ring. That was the best finish of the season in second. I remember listening to you and Bruce commentating about that. I was away somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal stuff. And then, he handed the car over to his co-driver in a perfect position. And they only lost out on the lead of that race, I think, with 2 or maybe even on the final lap, 2 laps to go, when it all kind of came to a head at turn 2, and the car was spun around in the end, and it rejoined in second position. But they only lost out effectively there on 7 points. When you compare 18 to 25, still wouldn't have gotten the title or anywhere close to it. So they can't just blame that one incident. But yeah, I mean, it's an extension of a great relationship that was born in the British GT Championship. Duncan Cameron, I think, continues to get quicker. Namely, he's a businessman, a very successful one, but he gets better and better.
He didn't do British GT, but as you say, it was born in the British GT Championship. That Absolutely relationship, correct. yeah. And I just think it's good to see what can be done with a good set of people and a bit of determination. So GT champions then, Johnny Lawson, Mikael Mack and Andrea Rizzoli. And again, Graham, I'll ask you about this. What do we know about next year for Formula Racing, AF Corsa, Gulf Racing, AT Racing? Who are we going to see back next year, and what of JMW Racing?
Well, JMW's certainly been looking for an opportunity to step up to the WEC. That's gone quite quiet. But I have zero doubt we're going to see Jim McWhirter and his merry gang back again in international sports car racing. Whether or not it's in Europe or on the world stage remains to be seen. The other name that we are most certainly going to be seeing for the full season is Beechstein. They will be there in the ELMS with Andrew Howard's new to him, Vantage GTE. That, by the way, is the same car, albeit with the 16 bits taken off. That the first pictures of the 2016 Aston Martin Vantage, because for the second time in Beechstein Motorsports history, Andrew's bought the Aston Martin Racing Development car. So they'll certainly be there. I think we're going to see a bit of a reshuffle all round with GTE. My guess is we might see a couple of teams stepping up from GT3/GTC. There's going to be a lot of Ferrari 458s available, and we might.
And that's a good car. It's a well-proven car. It's still a fast car.
It's a great car. You know, let's not forget, John. If it weren't for a broken wheel in Bahrain, that would be a 3-time World Championship winning car.
True.
And yet okay, it's an if, it's a but, it's a maybe. But I think, for me, when we, at some point in February, get to hear what the European Le Mans Series is going to deliver with full season entry, I wouldn't be remotely surprised to see an entry of 5. And I wouldn't be remotely surprised to see an entry of 10. And I think it's all going to come down to who can get their ducks in a row and get those programs together. It's still a tricky time, particularly when you're dealing with a Pro-Am formula, which in the European Le Mans Series, LMGTE, remember, it's not Am or Pro, but it runs to Am regulations.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky time to actually find guys who are prepared to pony up that kind of money.
I do think it's an important category, and I'll bring Johnny back in on this as well, and I'll tell you why. Because it is one of the few places where non-professional drivers can go and drive a GTE car in multi-class racing
and win.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, I think that first of all, the experience level of it, Johnny, is important. But everybody likes to win. There's no full pro category. It gives the opportunity for some pros to get a bit of extra work, and fitting in 5 or 6 extra championship races is a good thing to do. But also, I just think, you know, some of the names we've been mentioning there, look at the confidence that they've been able to gain in their driving career, if you will, as a non-pro driver. I think it's essential that it's kept Pro-Am and it's kept in the championship.
Yeah, we've mentioned Duncan Cameron. There are plenty of other people whose main career is away from motorsport, but they like to experience racing 5, 6, 7 weekends a year, and they get to do that, you know, with not full commitment to a 20 weekend season or something like that. They also, though, get to partner someone who's very, very quick, and they can offer advice then, so that you've got this opportunity for information to go both ways effectively, and there's the compromise to be struck as well between the pro driver and then how the non-pro likes their car set up. I also think it's a hotbed of new World Endurance Championship drivers potentially, because very recently at Bahrain we had Marco Mappelli stepping up, who's been in somewhat of a revolving door at Proton competition, but a couple of rounds for the Italian with the 88 Porsche. Matteo Cressoni making the step up to the arguably higher level as well. So, you know, we look to the European Le Mans Series to maybe find talent for the WEC in future years.
You're listening to Johnny Palmer, Graham Goodwin, the editor of dailysportscar.com, and me, John Hindhaugh, as we look back on our radiolemans.com review of the 2015 ELMS season. An addition to the championship this year was the new ACO category of Le Mans Prototype 3, LMP3, and up until the end of the season, that was the sole bailiwick of the Ginetta LMP3 car, a single Ligier JS P3 coming in at the end of the season for Graf Motorsport, and coming in with a bang, claiming second position in the season finale at Estoril. Graham Goodwin, first of all, and there's quite a lot to talk about LMP3 here, but let's talk about the positive side of it and the start of the championship with Lawrence Tomlinson's Ginetta company adopting the formula early and getting the cars out for the first round at Silverstone. 4 cars out. Extraordinary achievement to have done that, and for all of those 4 cars to have run pretty much faultlessly at Silverstone back in April.
was 5.
It was 5.
It was 5. So that's
the
first
Lannan racing car didn't finish. You're right, absolutely.
First things first. It's not our way, your way, to pat yourselves on the back, but it was Freddie Le Mans that got the story first. This 10 to 15 car commitment from Ginetta,
I'd ask him twice.
They have delivered on.
I had to ask him twice because I thought I'd misheard down the telephone line.
Well, okay, we'll come to the other side of that story, of course, a little later. But to get 5 cars in a brand new, completely unproven class, on track and remarkably reliable, actually. I think the Lannan car completed half distance. Johnny will correct me if I'm wrong. But all the other cars to the finish, I thought was a pretty remarkable achievement. And, whatever has happened since, at some point, my advice to our friends, and they are our friends at the ACO, is that somebody should drop Mr. Tomlinson a line and say thank you very much, because that's launched a quite extraordinary success story at the moment with LMP3. And without that commitment, I don't think it would have happened. I really genuinely don't. So first things first, that was a pretty extraordinary achievement from the boys and the girls at Garforth in Yorkshire. In terms of the car, it took time to hit its stride. It was very, very new. It wasn't showing the kind of pace that the design kind of promised. The biggest wrong turn, by the way, through to the mid-season was there is no way that the car in its current spec should ever have been the car that was taken to Watkins Glen for that IMSA test.
Agreed.
That was a massive mistake by all concerned, and they should have waited until the closed season to take another look. And that probably has killed LMP3 for some time in North America. There are cars in North America, but they'll be taking part in things like the NASA series and other racing rather than being part of the IMSA package. And I think that might ultimately prove to be a wrong turn. However, for the European Le Mans series, I guess, to be blunt, it was a story of ultimately 3 cars, arguably 4. You can't get away from the fact that it's, Imola, and Johnny can talk a bit more about Imola because I wasn't there. It's the one that I missed, and about the events there where Team LNT basically melted down. But to be blunt, it was all about Team LNT for almost the whole of the season. And in particular, it was all about the number 3 car, from L&T, and in particular it was all about the speed of Charlie Robertson and the emerging skills of Sir Chris Hoy. Behind them, we had a bit of a revolving door in the number 2 car, but finally scoring a win at the final round for Getem Palatu and Mike Simpson. But Team L&T, I think, did an extraordinary job. If there's controversy attached to that, it's the fact that you've got 2 factory cars in what's meant to be a customer series. But putting that aside, because of course this was a proving year, the car by the time it finished the year was leagues different from what we saw at the start of the year. And that set up the opportunity for Jacques Nicolet, for others too, with the Odesse and the Riley Arve we haven't seen, and the Dome we haven't seen yet, to enter the marketplace. And I can tell you, I was at Dunlop Test in Bahrain on the Monday after the race, John, and confirmation from Jacques Nicolet, officially, for the first time, 30 cars sold. 30 cars sold for the Ligier.
30 LMP3 cars?
LMP3 cars.
Oh, my goodness me. Of course, they won't all necessarily go into competition. There'll be some of those going to track days, and they'll be spread all over the world. But even so, that's interesting.
I expect to see a grid next year, because that's going to be the next question you ask me, of 10 LMP3 cars.
Wow. Johnny, just the 3 for the full season, of course, but they looked right, they sounded right. As Graham rightly said, they got quicker through the season as people learned them. A decent addition, and it was a learning season for everybody, but the racing at times was actually pretty impressive.
It was. I think your point about them sounding superb, struck me on the first day I heard them going round at Silverstone, first weekend of the season. That 5-litre V8, unmistakable, not quite the same as the Nissan that's run in the P2 cars, but impressive numbers for a category straight out of the box, really. They look the business, although as they were travelling around, I always thought it was sort of sagging a little bit in their mid-drift, but that look of the car was refined through the year. They got more reliable as well, and actually the reliability generally was pretty good, as the point you make. 5 cars started at Silverstone, and 4 of them finished. The other one did just about make half distance. And it's this championship's always needed a sort of Class B within the prototype element of it. We've had Formula Le Mans, we've had Prototype Challenge, and LMP3 is the next iteration of that. And if what Graham says is correct, 10 cars next year, that is mouth-watering stuff.
And again, you've mixed with these guys through the years, through the season, very interesting mix of people in the car. So Chris Hoy, obviously taking a lot of the headlines and a lot of the media interest, the non-automotive or motorsport media interest, because of who he is. And this is a genuine attempt by Sir Chris Hoy to have a second sporting career, isn't it, Johnny?
Oh, very much so, yes. And, it's not just the European Le Mans Series that he does. He still competes in Radicals, in other championships as well. And I remember him having great success at the Red Bull Ring only the weekend before ELMS went there. I think he took 2 wins then and then came back for another victory a week later. So, he's as competitive as ever. He may be, maybe saying goodbye to his cycling career, but this is now all of a sudden an opportunity for the engine behind him to take the strain. But he's still got very much so much pace, and I think ably assisted by Charlie Robertson, who is an unsung hero. I've watched him since his Ginetta Junior days, when he first started racing at maybe the age of 15, and we're not much further on from that. No. And he's another championship winner. Very impressive stuff.
Ironically, of course, Johnny, showing the benefit of Ginetta being involved at all stages, because he's come up through juniors. He certainly did G50s. Did he do G55s as well? I think he did, didn't he?
Came back for 55.
Yeah, because I think he was in the race. He was in the championship, the couple of races that I did, and it would be sad, would it not, to think that we might lose Ginetta from this LMP3 stepping stone because of whatever, clash of personalities, business issues. Let's not go into that now. But that development ladder to bring youngsters from 14, 15 years old onto the doorstep of a Le Mans career, that has worked very well.
We had a Ginetta car at Le Mans only a few years ago. Was it Nigel Moore? And, he was another Ginetta Junior starter. But Charlie Robertson, Ginetta Junior champion in 2012. He then went on to do some single-seaters in the BRDC Formula 4 Championship. Got a 3rd place in that in the championship. Then he was GT4 Super Cup, the ones you raced. He was the champion of that reporting, and is now another champion in the European Le Mans Series at LMP3 level. So that's 3 championships in 4 years. He's a real talent in the future, and as you say, one to blossom from the programme leads.
Kind enough to help me with my data as well. I don't think I was any threat to him whatsoever, even with his kind. But it's Gaëtan Palatou, the Frenchman, Graham, who's come up through the Nissan GT Academy. He looks the real deal as well. Michael Simpson, we know all about, but nice to see some new names in there as well, giving LMP3 prototype and ACO rules racing a little bit of a go, and that's exactly what this category is all about.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, the launch to get to the GT Academy to an opportunity to get into another two this year. By the way, I think it's the first ever race in France, which is quite astonishing. It's the 124 hours. But what we're seeing are teams and drivers putting a toe in the water, and that's what this is about. This is about the aspiration to improve the youth skill set, to move through LMP onwards and upwards, whether it takes you to GT racing, whether it takes you to LMP2 and beyond. And I think it is a well-founded class. It's clearly found fans in terms of teams, drivers and owners beyond ACO rules racing. Certainly anything that can produce the kind of production numbers. We're talking, in terms of orders of production numbers, John, of something around 50 cars at the moment across the the three manufacturers that have so far built them. By the way, we will see Ginetta back. We won't see Team McAtee back. It's only ever going to be a single season for the factory team, as I said, as part of the development curve. Racing confirmed they should return with their Ginetta. And against them, we believe we're going to see Des or two. I think there's a lot of dreams. I like, as you do, the pressure and actually competition in a marketplace brings. Okay, we've got the standard Nissan, X-Track, powertrain, but the fact that we've got...
No, that's a sensible cost capping measure that will cap the cost, and it means that there's no advantage to anybody trying to build super duper engines. It's something that is a constant. The other thing I like, I'll be honest with you, Graham, they look like proper racing cars. They look like a scaled down P1 car in a way that those of us who've got long memories, that C2 cars almost did, but not quite, because the windscreens were just slightly out of perspective with the rest of the cars, but the little wheels on the C2 cars and the rest of the bodywork looked great, but always the big windscreens made the glass area slightly too big. LMP3, for me, are some of the best looking prototype cars that are out there at the moment.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think the other thing I'd say about that marketplace is that I think it's already got a reputation. I was actually reading just last week, playing catch up by Teetering Parlour magazines. I've not gotten around to reading. I think it was Andrew Franklin test drive Ginetta, his first ever sport prototype, and it's worth it. It's got the opportunity to read back numbers or get their own conclusion. Let's have a look at that. He comes up with some very good conclusions from the point of view of survival with tablets and what that draws out. There is one refinement I'd like to see mentioned, John. That's around, and I'll be keen to hear what Johnny.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to say pit stops.
It is, and for the correct reason, because we've got some fairly experienced teams at this end of the marketplace that need to time to 2 minutes 30 in pit stops. As the cars developed, got quicker, they were regularly able to deal with in traffic. And I just wonder what Johnny thinks about that.
Yeah, Johnny, 2 minutes 30 on a pit stop. It was mandatory, it was for safety reasons, but does it look a little too cautious now?
I think maybe not, yes. It does take something away from the race, because you know that the crews aren't going gung-ho to do the stop as quickly as they can. On the other hand, you've got to make sure that the wheels are correctly connected to the car and the fuel's gone in safely. So I understand the reason for doing it, and maybe it's just a step to get to the point down or losing completely.
What going forward, Graham, is there something that could be looked at even perhaps before we get to the start of the 2016 season on that front?
Yeah, I think, it's a role-breaking class. That's a role-breaking way of actually approaching this. It's not just about drivers, it is about the team, as John quite rightly says. And if we have got a class of 10 drivers, then let's start looking at those teams graduating within LMP3. We have a prologue test, the teams have to be there. Why don't we? There's plenty of track time, there's plenty of opportunity. Why don't they have some form of safety qualification during that test? And should you come through that safety qualification, then there's the opportunity for the organisers to say, well, okay, you can do a racing pit stop, or even a minute, even the 60-second pit stop, if that's really tough. Whereas other teams, they might have an opportunity, not Silverstone, it's a packed programme, but maybe at a later round, to make that qualification. But for me, it should be about everybody progressing up through the ladder. And, there are a number of steps that you can take with the classes, but what about a step within the class? Let's have the teams qualifying too. We love to talk about this, correctly, John, as being the true team sport. The team take part in this. It's not just about speed, it is, as Johnny absolutely correctly says, about safety too. So let's let them prove it.
I'd just like to point out, by the way, that if anybody is looking for a pit crew to change cars and whatever, Nick Damon and I are still the reigning pit stop challenge winners from the Travel Destinations Campsite.
You well. That's very true. That is very true. On final point on LMP3, and of course congratulations to Charlie Robinson and to Chris Hoy for taking the championship. Final point on LMP3, Johnny. Remarkable number of chassis out there. It's great to mention. There is an extra race next year within the championship, plus the Le Mans support race, where GT3s and LMP3s will be out together on the Saturday morning. Surely no better reason for anyone to get into LMP3 racing than to have a chance of racing on the 8.5 mile circuit on race weekend. Now they've been allowed at the test day for a couple of years. They've been allowed to qualify by driving PC cars or LMP3 cars. So the opportunity is there, and it's going to be a great draw.
Yeah, because I think the majority of people that are entering into LMP3 have aspirations to get to the Mans one day. So you need to be able to show the potential team on a signpost to say, I've done this track before, it's not in the main race, but I could do the support race in LMP3. Or if you want GT3, if you want to go that route as well. And yeah, with so many cars out there, that's going to be a draw in itself. I think people want competition as well, and that was the good thing about turning up at Silverstone tonight. There were 5 cars out of the block, so you were going to have some sort of race. That's got steadily better through the year, and next year could be even better. But I think the key things are having cars to race with, so you're going to be involved in some sort of battle, no matter what level you're at, and then the potential to be at the Mans next year as well on the Saturday morning.
It's Graham Goodwin, Johnny Farmer and me, John Hindorf, as we look back at the LMS season for 2015. Welcome along to this special show, and we arrive at the top class, which in LMS of course is LMP2. Now there was all kinds of really howling that LMP2 in the top class would never work, had worked in the old iteration of the LMS. Well, those days are over, and for the past few seasons it's been abundantly clear to anyone who's taken a look at it that it does work. It's been great. The racing has been fantastic. 16 different cars have been entered throughout the season. Almost half of those were full season entrants. Okay, for the championship battle, it was really the top 3 cars for the season who maybe count the 4th one as well, who were in there, but certainly the top 3 had decent battles. But first of all, Johnny, a word about just the general standard of racing there, with quite often 10 cars out in the entries up into double figures for some of the rounds. It's not huge, and clearly if we'd had 16 cars for the whole season it would be better, but the racing on the whole once again was pretty good.
Very much so, and I've forever been banging the LMP2 drum. Let us not forget that when it all went a bit wrong in 2012, that was the year of the split when the Mans Series became the World Championship and the LMS, and it did take a full year for the LMS to get going in the right direction, but I still think that can generate a wonderful race. As 3 teams have certainly proved. You've had a team coming into the championship with a brand new chassis, and that started getting podiums for the year. AF Racing, and they turned out to be several names to Murphy Prototype never really shone through the season. They had a second place at number 11, but otherwise a real difficult year. But their Orica 03R had potential to go quickly. And then you had the bit part players like Pegasus Racing, some superb meetings for them, but again couldn't sustain it across the full year. And then other teams that came in part way through, Algar Pro Racing, some teams that we lost part way through as well. So there were people that maybe didn't have the finances to go the full year. The ones that did all 5 races, I'll write to their championship.
It's a difficult time for anybody, Graham, in LMP2, because much documented on this channel and on Midweek Motorsport, there's a new set of regulations coming, and not all of the chassis that are out there and none but one of the engines that are out there at the moment will be eligible for the brave new world of LMP2 racing in 2017, and yet we have still had variety. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I suppose 6, with the different iterations of Ligiers, Morgans and Oricas, along with the Gibsons and the BR01. 6 different chassis out there. I want to talk about the BR01 because this is very interesting. SMP racing, AF racing at various stages of the season. Yes, and indeed, AF racing,
but not with the BR01. We talked a lot in the WC broadcast, John, you and I and the guys have done, about particularly from ESL and their season variety. But what's missed here is that there's a team that's raced under 3 different names with 2 different cars in 5 races.
Yeah,
it's an extraordinary.
But 2 different tyres, as Johnny pipes in.
Quite right, absolutely right, Johnny. Well done. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about the BR01
Yep.
because of the situation with the 2017 regulations, and as Johnny rightly pointed out there, as he was talking about it, by the end of the season, the AF car got a 2nd and a 3rd. Before that, SMP at Red Bull Ring had a 3rd with that car. Here's a car that has been built purely with the thought of getting into this and the WEC Championship, with the thought of making customer cars, and for whom there is now no future. This is clearly a car that has competitive legs. It's obviously in its early days, but I feel a bit sad about that, if I'm honest.
I entirely agree. We are going to see the car take a step up with the WC, shutting out. Better still, perhaps strangely, they're building new cars to that specification. 5 chassis by the time we get to next year. Of course, at least one of those will be a spare chassis. They are actively looking for customers in the LMS. The car will, of course, remain eligible in the Asian Le Mans Series for another couple of years beyond that.
And of course, it will be eligible here longer than it is in the WEC, which is the point I was trying to get to.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because we like to see variety, and there's no doubt in my mind that this Red Island Chancellor is a very good looking car, and it's a work of high quality, as you'd expect. Pelicans only, lest we forget, I think certainly Peugeot 908 sometimes. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that the original Courage chassis that now is, I think that's his as well. I think that's his as well. The extraordinary body of work of but even if you started and finished with the Peugeot 908, for a guy capable of producing a car that was an Audi beater, and lest we forget, we tend to focus a lot on the long, I know, but you and I, John, will remember vividly just how many times Audi's rear end was handed to them by Peugeot.
Yeah,
1,000-kilometre races.
Yes.
So this is. I think it's one to watch. They're very, very serious about it. I think you can see those cars racing in an extraordinarily different number of races next year. Certainly in the race report, so they're going to take a look at that. And my guess is there's a shadow plan. See the numbers of the States was talking about Australia. But ELMS, they tell me they have strong prospects for customers in ELMS. We know already that one of those that won't be going forward has told me that it's great. He tends to stick with the faith of Lorica. But
in this championship, in the ELMS.
In that championship in the ELMS. But we may very well see those BR01s. It will be the cars we've seen this year because the new cars will be for their WC programme. Back in the LMS, and I think that's a great thing.
Let's talk about some of the drivers in those teams, Johnny, if we may. And the Murphy prototype guys with the Orica and the Nissan, Michael Lyons, Natalia Burton and Mark Patterson, did all the races, but 3 retirements really, not helping them in their championship challenge. But a decent team that seemed to gel quite well. No doubt, by the way, that Mark Patterson is a very, very good non-pro driver. Michael Lyons will drive anything, and some of his performances in classic machinery is quite extraordinary. Italian Berton, the interest there for a lot of people. One of the new breed of drivers coming from GP2, GP3, for whom sports car racing may be a larger part of their career than they might have first expected, John.
Some of it maybe is proper perhaps in single city racing and realise that there's plenty of work out there to drive prototypes. I don't know whether he's been entirely on two and then potentially on the one after that, or whether sports cars is definitely the way he wants to go. It's very, very quick. There was an issue in one of the races this year where he had some kind of eye infection and Michael Lyons and
Mark Manson.
We're worried that we'd have to do the one race just with the two of them, and then Nat was able to actually then get in the car for the final spin. But Mark Atkinson, he threatens to retire every single year. He keeps going.
Yes.
He started some races on the front row and kept the car up there. There's no hint of it fading at all. He's able to mix it with some of the really good people in this championship, and he's particularly impressive around Imola. So they've actually got a decent mixture of experience, speed, high pace sometimes. Michael Lyons is a great guy to talk to, and he's just as flamboyant in the car as he is when you have a chat to him on the sidelines. Unfortunately for him, he had a monster shunt at Ricard this year at the end of the mid-start straight. I think it was down to something failing in the car when they were in a good position, and it was another retirement. And sadly for Murphy this year, retirement's been a constant theme.
Not time to talk about everybody, unfortunately, Graham, but I just wanted to pick out a few other people. David Markazov, Maurizio Mediani and Nick Manassian recently seen in the car in the FIA WEC. But to see Nick Manassian, Markazov's an interesting character, and he has impressed me. Shatar was out of the championship as well. But I want to ask you, what of Krohn racing? Tracy Krohn and Nick Johnson sixth in the Drivers' Championship, and there leaves you GSP2. Well, the big man can get in it. It's run with the Judd 3.6 V8. Where are they next year? Yeah, and that's worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, one quick correction. It wasn't
Yes, sorry, but those,
yes,
yeah.
And worth mentioning, yeah, because I think he's a man with a serious future in sports.
Well, he's somebody I was going to talk about when we get to the next, because he was with Kirill Ladigin, wasn't he? But yes, sorry, that car, Markazov and Manassian, with Aloshin who'd come across. But the fact, Graham, that Tracy Krohn, for whom this championship might have been put together like a very expensive bespoke suit, because there's a busy man who tried the WEC, didn't have the amount of time to travel the world and do 3 or 4 day meetings. However, for whom a 2-day meeting and a 4-hour race 5-6 times a year plus the Mon, which, you know, for them all in Europe, travelling back to the States, pretty much with the time zones, get back, if not the same day, certainly not far off it, to be at his desk earning the money on the Monday morning. This championship's made for him, and yet we don't know what he's doing, and that is a worry to me.
I think
is that the championship, or is that just Tracy?
I think that's Tracy. I think it's just he's got to make a decision on what way forward it's going to be. But it was quite a stealthy run. I'll admit that, you know what I said, the final round, and lots of the points was kind of, they're fourth. You know, and in the championship that's featured up to 11 cars. That was a surprise.
Well, Esterill's their worst race of the season, isn't it?
And in fairness, you I'm afraid have to make that Tracy's feet, because he had an absolutely awful so race.
Johnny, didn't he spin 2 or 3 times in the first couple of laps?
He's gone to the first corner. Otherwise, you know, I can't remember any mistakes that Tracy made. And bear in mind, I think this is his first full season in a prototype, having spent so many years in that Ferrari.
Yeah, and he's I think 62 now, is he? he's, he keeps himself fit. He's certainly quite a bit older than me, and he's doing pretty well. Let's go up to 5th position in the chat. Let's hope we find out something about them. 10 points rather, better off. Mikhail Aloshin and Kirill Ladegin in 5th position in the championship. Solid from them, Johnny. I think is the fair comment on them.
Yeah, take it to account. We're talking about speed racing.
Yes, Aloshin and Ladegin, a couple of thirds, a bad start to the season. Silverstone and Imola, 2 8th positions, and that really blunted any chance for the rest of the year.
Yes, and the fact that they were changing the name of their team as well at certain points, they couldn't then have the same points that they had previously. The tyre change was a big issue. That's why they had to get a full thing. That's why they had to change the name from FFP Racing to AF Racing to enable them to go on to arguably much better rubber for the BR01, as that 2nd and 3rd place end to the season would prove. But the number 37 car got a 3rd place at Red Bull Ring as well. So the BR01 was a sight to behold, really, because it turned up. They had to delay it initially. The plan was to take it to Silverstone. They had to delay that till Imola, and then it was a question of how quickly they could go. Well, the success really came towards the end of the season, and that is a real tribute to Paolo Catoni's designing expertise.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tristan Gomedy came 4th in the Drivers' Championship, 66 points, so another 10 points better off, sitting on his own in 4th position. The way that the Drivers' Championship worked, his best position at 3rd at the Red Bull Ring, at 1st at Imola and a 2nd at the Red Bull Ring, 3rd at Silverstone, nothing at Estoril, and a 6th at the Castellet.
Relationship was
No, he wasn't. No.
The relationship with Thierry Embauti this racing went a little bit sour, I think. He brought in Nicola Lafayette. I don't think Gomedy did anything particularly wrong, but there's nothing to blame for the 2nd place at Ricard.
That's interesting.
It was made clear by Rebecca that something had to change. In reality, what happened could change was professional. It seemed to be wanted an opportunity to match the relatively better pace in WRC. The other drivers who were quite busy. I think Lafayette had experience of that. Tristan didn't, but I think Tristan was going to stand up to it. It's interesting. I'm sure when you ask us about the motives, John, one of them is we consider the type of Tristan Gomedy to finest out.
We'll come to that later on, along with GT and prototype drivers of the year and the overall performance of the year from both Johnny and Graham Goodwin, who are my guests as we look back on the ELMS season for 2015. Now it's the top 3 in the championship. 3rd position for Felipe Albuquerque, Simon Dolan and Harry Tinkham, 89 points. And it should be pointed out that the top 3 at the end of the season was separated by 4 points, and at various positions through the Estoril race, I think we had pretty much all of the 3 of them and were leading the championship at one stage. It was quite a remarkable final race, and Johnny, it had been building to that for the whole season, hadn't it? And the guys from Jota Sport, you never count them out. Started the season solidly with a 2nd and 3rd. Their only race of the season at the Red Bull, then a 3rd and a 1st in the 5 races. Now, for most people, that would be a decent season, and yet 3rd place in the championship.
Yeah, and I just cannot stop thinking about what happened in Ricard. They really shot themselves in the foot by miscalculating how long Albuquerque was in the car. They won that race on the track, and that would have given them 10 more points, and they would have won the championship far more convincingly. But in the end, they were docked 2 positions. It was a 3rd place finish at Ricard, and it all came down. It was great for us, for the spectators and commentators alike, because we then had this battle involving 3 different teams. And as you say, the yin and yang of the race meant that I think each of those squads at one point led the points championship. Cannot knock Jota's qualifying expertise, though, because remember, 4 of those 89 points came from being the quickest car on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always Tinkham in this case. I think Albuquerque got at least 1, possibly 2 of those fastest laps to put it in front of the grid.
Now, Graham, we've documented on Midweek Motorsport the fact that Jota are looking at other ways of bringing driving talent through. Harry Tinkler, obviously former single-seater driver, and has been through the hands of Jota Racing, the partnership, I suppose, with Arden is very interesting indeed. It won't be the only names to come into LMP2 that we would normally associate with single-seater racing, even single-seater racing at the highest level, and more of that. I'm sure if you haven't already heard, you will have heard what we've been talking about recently on Midweek Motorsport. Ultimately, will Simon Dolan, who is the driving force behind that team, for Simon for the driving talent there, will he be disappointed in the season? Will he feel that that's one that's got away from the squad?
300% to make himself almost double there. I think Simon has got a very sore rear end to pick himself. The conversation, I actually prompted the conversation by contacting Simon afterwards and said, look, for those that didn't see the race, make Simon leading the race in good position at the time, hit the wet track first, took into the gravel of that, effectively lost the race there. He will not, he will blame himself for that, no doubt whatsoever. My view is, but he sets himself the very highest
standards.
And in one regard, it's degrees in one regard that sometimes can be Simon slightly, because he's never satisfied with the extraordinary level to which he's developed as a silver driver. He wants to be as close as he possibly can to the pro drivers. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's the kind of level where you get a percentage issue of mistake right to become. But I'm in awe of what Simon as a general driver has achieved, continues to achieve. Will be back. I can think genuinely, I don't say this lightly, no team and no driver deserves the title in this series more, simply because of the way they approach it, the brought to it, standards of excellence, etc. I look at that points table, and in truth, I can't believe they did. Yeah, I really can't.
Well,
they were that good this season.
Well,
it was
worst,
just those couple of errors that actually got the better of them.
Worst finish to fourth. Second worst finish was 2/3, one of which, as Johnny rightly documented, was for effectively a miscalculation in process. In second place, just 2 points better off, Ludo Bardi and Pierre Thirier. We've mentioned Tristan Comedy being part of those through the first 4 rounds of the season, joined by Nico Lapierre for one of 2 wins. Estoril, the final round, they'd also won at Imola. But it was that result at Le Castellet, Johnny, that really ultimately, I mean, it stands out when you're looking just starkly at the figures. 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 6th, 1st. It just stands out like a sore thumb, that 6th at Le Castellet.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopes were high and really doing well in this championship, one that they've struggled to win over the last few years. They won it in the fateful 2012 year, by the way, where we didn't get very close to the America. But the same came so close in 13 and Tech 1 and 14 and Tech 1 and so close once again within 2 points of it. You have to look at that run for Paul Ricard. He's been the one to really let them down. 6 positions with 8 points in comparison to 25, 18, 15 for first, second and third. You cannot afford a result like that.
Well, in point of fact, one more position, it would have looked very different at the end of the championship. It is on such fine margins on championships even at this level, won and lost. Ultimately, of course, we congratulate Gary Hirsch, Hopsmees, John Lancaster and Bjorn Bergheimer. Truly European, Swiss, British and Scandinavian entry. 93 points. Started the season brilliantly with a win at Silverstone, as Johnny rightly said, it's somewhat controversial circumstances with a very robust piece of overtaking by John Lancaster, which I'll say now, no disrespect to John, I said it at the time, I'll say it now, I think it was extraordinary that didn't get called by the stewards. Their bad patch was Imola and Red Bull Ring, Graham, took 4th positions there, but then, if you're going to win a championship, you've got to be strong when it counts. A win at the Castellet when some of their other competitors in the shape of TDS and Jota were not having their finest hour and did enough just at Estoril with a 2nd place to take it by 2 points. Sum up the season then for our championship winners.
Well, where do we start? Before we get into the LMS boys, I don't want us to go through this without recognising the guy who often gets a little Harry Hirsch goes, I think one of the moments in the season that was on, not the LMS.
Yeah.
And at some point, someone will write a book about some extraordinary goings on in that. Gary, an absolute sportsman, and I think he's driven beautifully throughout the season. So well done, Gary Hirsch. Greaves Motorsport, what can you say? One of the best LMP2 teams on the planet, without a shadow of a doubt. They will be worthy additions again to the WEC next season. We will see them back as well in the European Le Mans season. And in no small part, it's what those guys have done by way of car preparation and strategy that earned this title. Bjorn Verdheim, one of the nicest blokes in the paddock, lovely fella. I think he would agree with me that I think his pace slightly underwhelmed this year. I think he's got better races in him than we saw with Bjorn Verdheim this year. He's quick enough, but I think he could have added some little extra frisson to this quite soon. Hopefully he gets a chance to show me that it's and that he's got another 10 to it. And John Lancaster, the Gustavo Yakin.
Oh, that's harsh.
No. What do I mean by that? John is otherworldly talented. One of the best drivers in my existence. We saw in Silverstone there was a performance where he was judged. I think perhaps his behaviour and also the body language you saw from John didn't do favours. He came a bit, as you said, the series and replaced John. That stuck with him throughout the season. That was unfortunate too.
I don't think that's him, Grim, if I'm honest.
Well, I think it's a degree of maturity. I mean that not a cruel way. It's things he can do about it. I would like to be able to utterly fulsome my praise of that effort season, all season, because they were very deserving winners in the end. They were the team of quality throughout. It's exactly the same as other sports. But you always don't use those tenths, whether or not it's a tenth of a second on the timesheets, or whether or not it's a difference between the way in which they approach the racing or indeed out of the car. And it wouldn't be right to go forward and not comment on that. That said, congratulations to them. They managed to carry it through when others made a mistake.
Yep.
They had bad days, they had better days. We're not going to use the lucky word because I don't think it applies here. They're just plug on, never, ever, ever give up. That's how we win insurance racing.
I think that's probably the point that I would take away from this, Johnny, as well. That those 2 4th places in Imola and the Red Bull Ring after such a great start at Silverstone, they were then lagging behind just a little bit. They took the opportunity that was presented to them when TDS and Jota both had their issues at the Castellet, got the win there, and all of a sudden they were back in the championship. And at that point, you've almost got to completely change your mindset and go, guys, we can win this, let's go out and do it. And they delivered at Estoril. Okay, they didn't win it, but they did what they had to do, and they delivered. And, that's what we kind of expect from Graves and the Mighty 41, isn't it?
It almost became a one-race season heading to Portugal.
That's a good
I was
point.
so excited ahead of that because we just didn't know whether it was going to be Greaves, Thierry or Jota And again, to sing Gary Hirsch's praises, because he was one of the people who kept the car on the black stuff during that downfall that did account for many others. And he kept his head. He's another one that's progressed from prototype challenge racing with Paul Chatin, I remember a few years ago, and being someone to look out for then. Well, he's well and truly blossomed now, and gets Greaves another win at LMP2 level in the Le Mans Series, straight European Le Mans Series 2011. That's one. Bjorn Wertheim, watched him a lot this year in Super GT. He seems to be able to lend himself to all sorts of different backgrounds.
Very versatile.
He's the reigning forevermore international Formula 3000 champion, I think.
Did Tim actually pay you to serve us?
I just know he do. I listen to him. And John Lancaster, he's a character I actually learned to really like towards the end. I wasn't impressed with his behaviour necessarily at Silverstone, but I talked to him at Imola, and he said to me, listen, I'm here to win races, I'm not here to make friends. And if I don't drive like that, then Greaves won't continue to phone me up and ask me to drive for them. My career is on the line, and if there is a race there to be won, then I'm going to try my darndest to get to the checkered flag first. And I quite like this sort of blasé attitude whereby it doesn't really matter who he upsets along the way as long as he gets the biggest trophy at the end of the race.
Sure, I quite agree with that. That's a bit like if there's a gap and I don't go for it, I'm not a racer. No, the gap's got to be big enough in the first place. You haven't got to just steamroll your way through. That's never going to happen. And it was Ed Senna, of course, that said that, and I didn't agree with him then. I don't agree with him now. However, 93 points plays 91 plays 89. You can't argue with that, and Greaves are worthy champions again in the European ACO Racing League, if you will. The Mighty 41 stands atop proudly the championship table, and well done Gary John and Bjorn Wertheim, as well as everybody behind the scenes at Greaves Racing. Not quite in though from our look back to the 2015 European Le Mans Series season here on RadioLeMans.com. Going to ask about drivers of the season. They may come out the same because they haven't conferred during this. They're not in the same place. So let's go to Graham first for his GT driver of the 2015 ELMS season.
Well, you know everything we're talking about drivers of quality. I love it. I love a name that perhaps I don't know as much about as I'd like to. Consistently providing, just doling up points. Mikkel Mack, right? The championship Formula racing car. Every time I saw Mikkel Mack get aboard that car, he made a difference. And that for me is, you'll see this as we go through the classes, Mikkel Mack, for me, driver of the season. He won that title for Formula Racing.
Ooh, that's very good. In a team of not very well-known drivers, as we said, Mikkel Mack is Graham Goodwin's GT driver of the season. GT driver of the season from our lead commentator on TV and radio for the series this year, Johnny Palmer.
Well, I have to say that on my judgment, Mikkel Mack is a worthy winner because both Graham and I have gone for the same person.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he's still relatively young, but he was I have to say, I didn't know a great deal about him heading into the European Le Mans Series.
He's got a wiki entry, I tell you.
23 years old, that's all. He's come back from a sort of single-seater background again, done some Formula Ford racing, Formula 2 as well, but, the second year, I think, in European Le Mans Series racing. And, yeah, he was the gold-registered driver. He was the quickest on the average lap times when you compare the three together, ably supported by Johnny Lansford and so the two victories and the other good results that team got through the year are testament to Mikkel Mack's talent.
Let's stay with Johnny then for the prototype driver of the year. Could be LMP3, could be LMP2. Who've you gone for? Why, John?
We talked a lot about this person, but I think that it took a little bit of time to get used to the sportsmanship perhaps of sports car racing. But John Lancaster, for me, he entered the championship in an explosive fashion, but I think he calmed that attitude a little bit. And some of those stints again to get Greaves at the top of the championship table were mightily impressive. Again, assisted by his co-drivers, but John Lancaster has been very impressive in terms of his poor pace all year.
I'll come back to you for your performance of the year in a moment, Johnny. What type driver of the year from Graham Goodwin?
Well, you'll see, I've split my loyalties bit. We'll see why when we come to the next award, John. For me, it came down to two guys. I mentioned Gary Hirsch. He came very close because it is about making a difference. It's not just about the fastest car; it's about making a difference. Stacking up against your own opposition and the silver rankings. It's about Gary versus the rest, and principally Simon Dunn. There's some epic battles between those two. I'm going to go for Charlie Robinson. Why? Because you would never have expected to think before this year. This one thing is very exciting racing at the same time. A brand new class, a brand new car, a brand new team belt, a huge media profile behind it for one driver to dominate proceedings, and he did. And I think we've got a star in the offing again, Charlie Robinson. So Charlie Robinson for 2 minutes.
And for your performance of the year, Greer?
Well, this is where I said at I spent my royalties. There were two there as well in my little shortlist. The one that's going to fall very slightly short, and I massively apologise because I bow in deference to their achievements, was the Ginetta guys at Garforth for getting those 5 cars.
Very good.
Launching LMP3.
Honourable mention, yeah.
They come just slightly short because of the drama that we saw in the press conference following Silverstone. And if you haven't seen it, it is still available on the web. Please watch it. And my performance of the year is Tristan Gomandy at that press conference.
It was good.
It is by a distance. I hope I live to watch sports car racing for 20, 30 years. I will never see a press conference with drama like that again. I can guarantee it. Extraordinary stuff from Tristan and from the other teams involved. After a dramatic race, it didn't quit there. And that, my performance of the year, was a classy 5 minutes between Sam Smith, who was hosting the press conference, and Tristan Gomandy. It was wonderful to watch. Don't miss it.
And you, Johnny?
I want to just sing Leo Russell's praises because he had an absolutely sublime stint to start the Ricard race. He started on the front row, I think, but kept with the leaders pretty much all stint. And a silver graded driver, again, I didn't know a great deal about him, not quite as good as he was, but he just falls short to Aaron Scott's brilliant run from the back of the field to the front of GT's.
Yeah, and superbly described by you and Bruce, who have done sterling work throughout the season. Johnny, thank you very much for being the voice of the European Le Mans Series this year and anchoring it for TV and radio. The good news is that there's an extra 4 hours of racing in the Championship next year, plus of course that non-championship battle at Le Mans for the LMP3s and the GT3s as well, which I'm sure will get Johnny and or Bruce involved in during our coverage there as well. And of course it's back at Silverstone as the first round once again coincides with the opener for the FIA World Endurance Championship. Johnny will be there to cover it, as I hope will Bruce, and as I hope will you, listening in or watching on the TV. That was our look back at the 2015 European Le Mans Series season. What a cracker.
This program is a Radio Show Limited production.
Tell your friends there's more at radiolemans.com.
Midweek Motorsport, Wednesdays at 8 p.m.
News and analysis,
Speculation and debate.
special guests, and our resident experts discussing the whole gamut of motorsport.
Formula One, sports cars, touring cars, rallying and bikes. If it has wheels and an engine, and they keep score, it's on Midweek Motorsport, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on radiolemans.com.
The radiolemans.com forum is full of people just like you.
People who have opinions and aren't afraid to share them, just like you.
People who love all forms of motorsport, just like you.
At the track, on the radio, online.
Go to radiolemans.com and click on the forum button.
radiolemans.com. Racing on America's classic circuit. From trackside, this is IMSA Radio.
welcome to day 2 testing for the IMSA WeatherTech Championship. I'm Shay Adam and I am at Daytona International Speedway to bring you coverage of this second day. Already we've had a bit of weather move through, some serious thunderstorms this morning, but they've since passed and it has dried out beautifully. More cars choosing to go out on track now, as you can hear behind me. Corvette's finally leaving the pit lane after electing to wait until the track dries out a bit. But before we move to people on track, let's see who we can find hanging around in the garages. The surprise pole sitter from last year's Daytona 24 was Johnny Mullen. And Johnny, we shouldn't have really been all that shocked to see you up at the front, but it was so close for another pole at the Team Long. You're back for Daytona, though. Did you see a maybe this year?
I don't know. I mean, I guess in a way when you say surprise, kind of, my first reaction is quite surprised, but you're right, because obviously going into that particular core with Colin Moore in particular seems to be a real run, and they obviously a huge budget there for their team, so you kind of expect their car to always be at the forefront of it all. So it's kind of nice for me to out-qualify them, and it was a pleasant surprise, but when you go out to qualify, it's hopefully going to stick it on pole, and I actually really enjoyed last year's. It was one of my favourite qualifying sessions I've done in my whole career, in the sense of I just chipped away at it, and I got all my sectors. I actually wasn't quickest in terms of all those sectors, but I got all my best sectors on the same lap, and none of the other drivers managed to do that. So in a way, the car probably didn't deserve to be on pole, but I stuck it on pole. So it's very, very satisfying when you get that. But then my engineer, John Travis, and also the whole team with Brian Orr in Bar 1 did such an amazing job all week to get that car that good, and they made a few changes for it before qualifying that helped. So I was just the monkey behind the wheel. They deserve a lot of the credit as well.
What's it like to come back with the same team, though? Reassuring?
Well, when we came back at Petit, I hadn't driven it since Daytona, and I fitted straight back in. I couldn't believe how quickly it was just. John Travis wasn't there, unfortunately, but I was sort of remotely on the telephone with him, and then Mike McLaughlin was doing the engineering, and sort of remotely between John and Michael they were doing it, and I was actually pleasantly surprised how well I fitted back in again. And like you rightly said, we nearly got pole. It's just because we took the checker flag first, so we didn't get pole there as well, which that would have been a huge shock, because I literally went out there with no thought in my mind other than just keeping it on the track. I didn't want to crash it. It was so easy to do with the conditions that we had in qualifying. It was only when they told me I was P1 with 2 laps to go that I actually changed my whole mindset and started pushing a little bit harder, and then went quicker and quicker, and then obviously took the checker. And Tom Smith got a nice pole position for him, but he knew what to shoot for, and he had the last lap to do it on. So they put together on a shoestring of a budget sometimes, and I feel sorry for Brian because he's got a great team here, and yet he's still operating on a little bit of a situation where the drivers keep changing. He hasn't got a consistent driver pairing, and that really doesn't help when you're trying to have a tilt at a championship, because I know that if we could just have a run, sort of me and another driver, we have a real shot at winning a championship with this team.
What does 2016 look like for you?
I can't announce too much, but it looks like I'm going to be doing a European Championship in a brand new 488 Ferrari with a new team to international racing. Their established national team in the British GT, but they're going to go into stuff. And the whole point is I'm going to take them to Le Mans 24, help them go to Le Mans, but also there's a really good amateur driver as well whose dream is to do Le Mans 24 hours, and so I'm going to help him as well. So sports cars has changed immeasurably in the last 5 to 10 years with this whole driver ranking system. It's only in the last couple of years that I've actually taken any notice of it, because up until beginning of 2014 I didn't really need to take any notice of it, because I was always in a pro environment, so it didn't matter if you were platinum, gold, bronze or silver, you just went out and did your job and that was it. But now I'm kind of thinking, especially with the longevity of the sport, if I want to stay in it longer, which I do because I love it so much, I'm going to play to the rules of the business model that the series have created, and getting a bronze or a silver driver, a good one, and coaching them and bringing them along and taking them towards the Le Mans 24 hours, like Emmanuel Pollard is doing the same thing with François Perrodo. He's a little bit further down the road than I am at the moment in that sense, in that journey. But I think that's a really good way of you might as well make the most of the rules. It's a really good way to further your career and put yourself out there. Yeah, hell, with the European Le Mans Series winning with Matt Griffin in 2013, that was a really nice moment for me. It was nice to win a European championship. I won a couple of British, but never a European one. And so yeah, it's nice. nice, and I'm loving. About 2 years ago, I was thinking of retiring, to be honest, and then I thought about it, and I thought, well, I love what I do. I get a kick out of driving. I really do get a kick out of driving. Even when I'm doing a test day somewhere and I'm on my own and there's no real competition in terms of who I'm up against or lap times, I still just go out there and love trying to go better than my previous lap, trying to go quicker and quicker lap by lap. And I get out of the car and I suddenly realise I love this. I'm very fortunate to be able to earn a career out of this sport for the last 18 years. And obviously there have been ups and downs in that time, but by and large I can look back already and think, wow, I've had such a great time, and I'm just going to carry on driving. I'm going to be like Paul Newman. I'm going to be at Daytona when I'm in my 70s, I reckon. And I don't know if anyone will still be paying me at that point, but hopefully someone will at least give me a free drive or something, and I can just come and continue to have fun. I'm just going to drive for as long as I can.
On behalf of Midweek Motorsport Listeners Collective, please don't ever retire. But what's it like to drive around Daytona without a roof over your head?
Well, I kind of like that. I must admit, I'm a bit old school. I like the open cockpit. We're all going coupes at the moment. When I drove the Lola for Dyson, that was the first time I've driven an LMP1 coupe. And I must admit, I didn't actually like the environment so much, because it's the whole thing about GT cars is that they get incredibly hot in there. But you used to think when you're in a prototype, an LMP1 or something, it was a lot easier in terms of the ambient conditions were a lot nicer to deal with. And so now all the LMP1 cars are the same. You've got limited visibility as well. So I kind of like the feeling of being back out. Like, you almost feel like you're in a single seater again, you know. And I love that. I love my single seater times, and so I actually really enjoy it. Obviously, there's the element of risk because your head's exposed. But we raced like that for decades, and very rarely do problems happen. But I actually really enjoy it. And the PC, the Prototype Challenge car here, which is the only one to run open cockpit, they're improving it slowly by slowly. The rule makers are making it easier, so we're not quite so slow on the banking now compared to GT cars. We've got more power to come with traction control, which is going to help the gentle drivers in particular. So I think by and large it's a good car. It's probably the only cars out here that never mentioned that horrible phrase, balance of performance, which, watching yesterday with the 4 GTs going around, I noticed that that GT at the back, it's like a GP2 car with that diffuser. I'm not quite sure how they got away with that one, but that car looks awesome. I think that car's going to be really quick, straight off the mark, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how everyone else reacts to that. I suspect the balance performance over here might be slightly more conducive to them doing well with the balance performance in the WEC. That's my thought, but who knows? What do I know?
Predictions from Johnny. Johnny, you mentioned the upgrades that have been made to PC Pros. To Spar 1 car, are those running yet?
No, we're doing a little bit of development work with that. Continental came this morning and asked us maybe if we could do a bit of development with their new wet tyre, which I don't know if we're going to end up doing. It's one of those half-and-half situations today. But the actual upgrades aren't going to be put in place on all the cars until soon. So they're just doing a little bit of testing. But it's too early to try and do it for everyone in Daytona and keep a level playing field. And going back to what I was just saying, that's one thing I like about the organisers here with the Prototype Challenge class, is it is a level playing field. And if you go out there and put it on pole or do well in the race, it's because you've done a better job with your package than the other team. You know, it's not a case of you've got a better car, or you're running less weight, or you've got a bigger air restrictor, or whatever it may be. Which is kind of nice because it takes racing right back to its original roots. So you just go out there and drive as hard as you can, and hopefully do a better job with the next team, and that's how you win.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you after you've gotten pole of the 2016 Daytona 24. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, no pressure then. Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you.
Robert Lissa, you're coming back as a champion again this year. Same team, same driver lineup. That's got to be a pretty nice feeling for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's very good. We're very excited to try to defend our double championship. We knew last year was going to be hard. I mean, this year we're still in 15, so it's going to be hard. But, the team really pulled it through to the end, and we won the middle. But we're very excited about the next year. We're not going to have exactly the same lineup for the long races. Sebastian Bourdais had an offer to drive the Ford GT car, so best of luck to him. But definitely we're going to miss him. He was a great teammate, but there's a lot of great options out there, a lot of good drivers. I'm very interested in driving with Action Express, so I think we're going to be just fine with whoever comes up next. But just overall very excited of facing the last year with these DP cars. They gave us a lot of success lately, and just looking forward to start racing again.
Two really good drivers with you this weekend for the test, Simon Pagenaud and Philippe Albuquerque. What have they been able to do so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. There's a few different faces in the team walking around, but just glad that Philippe and Simon and also Scott were able to join the test and see how we all get along together. But I think, they're all great drivers. Obviously, Scott with a multiple Daytona winner, a lot of experience. He's always a great addition no matter where he goes. And the two other drivers, and Simon also very experienced driver. So, it's overall it's been a good test. We've had much weather today, but we've been able to take off the list a lot of items we wanted to test and just keep working towards the road. This test is very different because when we come here in January, temperatures are very different. The track changes a lot, so it's always good to have as many laps as we can during this test because the road is very difficult. There's a lot of cars on the track, but so far it's been a good experience. This race is right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the rain. It came on pretty quick in that last session.
Very quick. It's fun, like 10 mile an hour coming into pit lane because coming from the length of the vehicle, couldn't steer, the car just started spinning. I can't believe I'm going to hit 20 mile an hour, but heading home and hopefully the weather's going to dry a little bit and we're still going to have some dry running. I don't think there's a point to run in the wet right now. But, so just overall, it's been already a good test, so it's just wanted to complete all the items we still need to check on the list. So far, so good.
Are there many changes to the 2016 DP versus 2015?
No, they're exactly the same. So that's a car that we know very well. Obviously, we always have new ideas to try and make it better. Competition, it's stronger every year, and we have a bigger target on our back right now because of the 2 wins. So everybody wants to win the Action Express guys have been very strong, so we need to keep working as hard as we can.
The voice of sports cars, united. IMSA Radio.
The guy who definitely deserves a ride this year is Spencer Pumpelly, and Spencer got a bit of bad news the other day saying that he wouldn't be with the team you were with last year, but you're here, you're looking for a ride, and you've got quite the CV to bring to a team. So what's the biggest advantage you can go up to people and say, hey, I can help you with this?
Well, I think that I've got a lot of experience here, and I've got a history of being quick and consistent in winning races. So, it's a little unfortunate. Last season, I thought I did a really good job for Park Place, and I had a great time working with that team. But unfortunately, their plans and my plans didn't work out. So I found out last Friday that they confirmed they wouldn't need me for next season. So, here I am trying to see what I can find to stay in the series. I have a really good time racing here. It's been home for the last 15 years, and hopefully I can find a good place to continue to be successful.
You've been known as sort of a Porsche specialist over the years. All the GTC wins, coming so close to the championship, but you did drive an Audi. Would you be opposed to driving a prototype, though?
I would love to try a prototype because it's simply something new for me. All my time has been spent in GT cars, with just a couple of rare exceptions. I drove a GT in 2006, drove a Q2 in 2004 in a team. But for the most part, the GT class is kind of been where I learn how to drive cars. I know what GT cars like number one, but a prototype I think would be a great challenge. And I'd be able to do it. I prefer obviously closed cockpit. I think open cockpit cars should be sort of a relic years ago. Aviation figured out 100 years ago that putting roofs on them made a lot of sense. We're still want something like that would be an opportunity to look at some of the garage.
There have been a lot of instances, particularly last year, where you came so close to wins and then so close to the championship at the end. What sort of experience can you bring to a team in IMSA as opposed to Conti with that sort of success rate and also coming at it from a development point?
Well, you gotta understand I've been doing this for the series of GT now since 1980. So I'm 18 months old, little kid, and hard to change that since then. But I think that, you know, we got the Audi last year, fun with it. Everyone here's got new GT cars, so I think having a, you know, what I would bring to a team, not just, you know, obviously great pace, which I, you know, can prove. I'm not just talking about it. I got actually time sheets to prove it, and lots of history of winning. But I have the ability, I think, to help be a part. I mean, I can't take all the credit for obviously the Audi. There's a lot of people that did a lot of things to make that thing work, but I want to say I was a big part of it, and I can continue to do that with these new cars. I think you know, having a blank sheet is a good thing for a guy like me. I think we'd be quickly at the front end of any car you get.
And new cars, that is the theme of the weekend here at the test. So many people trying to learn the new cars and the new tires. You're used to developing new cars, though. What's it like, intimidation factor, going out there for the first time with a car that maybe you haven't driven before?
You know, I wouldn't call it intimidating. I would always call it exciting. I love driving something new. I love the challenge of getting up to speed quickly and trying to feel out its quirks. You know, the first couple of turns, the first couple of laps. You know, every car is different. Even if it's a Porsche, you drive all these new Porsches and all have to feel. And then you get into something Audi or all these different cars that are amazing to do. It's the subtle differences that you try to learn as quick as you can. And it's a blast. I actually enjoy that. So no intimidation at all. It's just pure joy.
And I have to ask, you've run in the lawn a few times before. Are we going to see you back there again this year?
Gosh, I would love to get back there, but as of right now, I don't see a clear path to get there. You know, the other times I've been there, been kind of circumstance happening, calling the races. I think if desire to go to Le Mans was the way there, I think there would be a lot more people going. But unfortunately, you have to have, I think, the people that like to go racing, want to go to Le Mans, and like you, want to bring you along. And opportunities to come and visit. And I really back to those trips we got to go, and just had more fun than I ever had racing. And you know, at the same time, it was tough. I think that was triples, and you got 3 guys, very little rest. Actually, as much as I love driving, there's times when I really want to keep sleeping. And like, no, don't wake me up. I don't want to do a triple again. I just got out of the car, but at the same time, it's just a big deal. So hopefully I'll get a chance in my career to get back there at some point, but you know, I really cherish the few times I've been with you.
Well, hopefully we see you in a car over here for Spencer. Thank you, and good luck for this season.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You always find people you're not expecting to see walking around the paddock. One of those, team owner of Performance Tech Motorsport, Brent O'Neill. Brent, what are you doing here? What's there to be gained from being at the test?
Well, you always like to come and see what everybody else is doing. You know, we've got the roar, so we just opted to leave the car at home. We rebuilt it out for the team. We're going to start private testing right after Thanksgiving. We're ready for 2016.
How extensive was the damage to the car?
Biggest one we ever had. So, yeah, it was a tub and on. So, but it's all back together and ready to go. And, you know, we just opted to stay home for
I'm not going to ask you to announce your drivers yet, but do you have a good core for next year?
Yeah, I think we do. We're real close to getting it all wrapped up, and you know, we've got some new kids coming into our IMSA Lights program, which is always a good thing to move them up the ladder. So it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But right now, for the PC program, we're looking pretty good.
What's the biggest thing you've learned so far from walking around and seeing everybody else?
It's a good idea to leave the car home. Nah, it's, you know, they're testing some engine stuff for the PC cars, and you know, I think we've learned that there's going to be a little bit of a change there. But other than that, all looks the same to me.
Well, we can't wait to see Performance Tech back in 2016. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
IMSA Radio, your route to America. sports car racing.
One of the best arguments I've ever seen for why somebody should be in a car is a picture of a trophy room, not just a cabinet. And that was by Damien Faulkner the other day. Damo, you said that's your resume pretty much. Just a bunch of trophies you've won. Clearly, you've been around for a while. You've seen a lot of different things, and you don't yet have a ride in the WeatherTech Championship. But why do you think you deserve one?
That tweet actually about my trophy cabinet, my trophy room, was a bit of a joke, and a lot of people liked it, I guess, on Twitter, which was good. It was fairly popular, but
it's a brilliant way to make a statement.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been trying to put together a deal for 2016 for quite a while now, and it just, not to be negative, but a lot of doors are closed in your face, and I suppose I just thought, well, maybe I'll just remind everybody, that my resume is good and that I am deserving of a place in the WeatherTech championship here. I love this series because I think it's the people, if I'm honest. I think that's the key. I can walk down this paddock and it could take half an hour to get the first 50 metres, because people will say, hey Demo, mechanics, team owners, and that's just a lovely atmosphere, and it's a bit sort of family, and it's really sort of akin to what life is like back home in Ireland. To be honest, it's really friendly, and I could be in worse places as an Irishman than be in America. So I just hope it will. I think it will turn out. I've come over to here for 3 days to walk around and speak to as many teams, and it's not. I mean, I'm not the only one. I don't want to paint a negative picture. There are other drivers walking around here too, but they've only got one day out there.
It's the endurance that goes through, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I've got another day tomorrow because I'm going to Sebring. But anyway,
that's dedication.
I haven't told anybody about that. But and I'm just going there to meet one person that I haven't met and that I want to meet and put a face to the name, rather. So I'm hoping that I'm gonna have something will come out of it. I mean, out of sight, out of mind. And it's quite natural, so it's good to come over to an event like this. It's great that the event is actually here at Daytona, and it's great that the event is actually happening, because it allows me to come to one venue to talk to most all the teams.
And you ran the 24 last year.
Yeah, and for the past good number of years. I found a lot of traction in my career over here in the US, and I've kind of it's very easy to have blinkers when you're in a series like this, because, well, quite frankly, I love it so much that I don't really want to participate anywhere else, and maybe that's a bit naive, but that's a sort of that's just a testament to the championship that it is, and as I say, I as an Irishman, it's fantastic to race it.
Well, and you have very strong ties to the U.S., having raced here so much before in the past. The last couple of years you were here with success in ALMS, running GT cars, so clearly you know how to get it done with those. But you also have downforce experience as well.
Yeah, and as well as the ALMS, I did Grand Am as well here for a couple of years, especially here at Daytona, as far back actually as 2008 with Synergy Racing. But yeah, I first came to the United States in late 2000, included an Indy Lights deal with Doricott Racing, and I did a year of Indy Lights in 2001. I won 2 out of the first 5 races. I came within 1,000 of a second of winning a record-breaking 3 in the first season, but I came second. So that was tough. Some tough competition there. Dan Weldon was in that series. Townsend Bell, a good mate of mine, was in that series. In fact, he was my teammate. And it's interesting to see that a lot of that crew, including his chief mechanic, the team manager, and his engineer, he has grouped all together and taken to O'Gara Motorsport. So so I know a lot of people, and I've got a lot of experience, and I did 1 or 2 sports car races as well. One at Mondello in the World Sports Car Championship in 2001, which we won for SRTS, the title back then, or helped them to do. So I've got down some course experience, and I raced in the series by Nissan as well in Spain. I've got all sorts of experience. I've done even radicals in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, and I drove a GT3 car in Dubai 24 hours a few years ago. So I've got a lot of experience, a hell of a lot of experience, as my trophy captain would suggest.
So it really doesn't matter what class it is. You feel like you could bring a strong program to any class in the WeatherTech Championship?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I see myself as I've got to word this right because I don't want to appear big-headed, if you like, but I see myself as having a lot of possessing a lot of race intellect, if you like. When you're on track, staying out of incidents, making clever decisions, and I mean, I can race well. I've won many races. I've won 5 championships.
Is that all?
and unfortunately, that is all. I should have won a Super Cup championship against Richard Westbrook, but I made bad stuff, and I didn't, and he deservedly won it. But I can do a good job. I think that bodes well with endurance racing, because in endurance racing it's a bigger package than just sprint racing. There's a lot more craft in it. There's a lot more work involved. Strategy is the word I'm looking for. And you've got to see the big picture. The big picture is very important to see that. And you've got a lot more things within the team. Like you've got teammates to get on with. I think my career and my style bodes well with endurance racing. And I'm not just here talking to the GTD teams. Unfortunately, most of the GT teams are factory based, so you kind of skip that one. And I'm talking to DC teams, but I'm even talking to P1 teams as well. So I believe I can offer them what I can offer GT teams.
The class is exciting. You look down the whole list of people who are entered for what will be the 24, at least we can speculate who's going to be there. What excites you most, though? Which class do you think is going to have the best racing?
That's a hard question. Obviously there's more factory involvement. I think this year with the GTs, so that's going to be an exciting class. But honestly, I don't think really there's going to be a dull class. A GTD is going to be exceptionally exciting, I think, because there's a whole raft of new manufacturers coming on board. Some of them are here today. And so, and of course, you've got the racing at the front with the prototypes. So between DPs and the classic, carbon fiber prototypes. So I think it's going to be a very hotly anticipated event. I hope to be part of it.
Concludes the first official test of the WeatherTech Championship. Although it's still 2015, 2016 is right around the corner, and 7 weeks away is the Roar before the 24, where we'll be back on IMSA Radio to bring you coverage of that as well. Lots of interviews, lots of people playing the cards very close to the chest, including Ford, who wasn't quite prepared to announce their drivers. That'll be later in the week. All the way down to people who just weren't revealing their times, or maybe revealing what their cars were truly capable of. We'll see what they really have to offer come January. Not too much sandbagging going on this weekend because there were no official times, so nobody was fastest, at least that we know of. But but we did see some fast cars out there as well. It leads us to believe only one thing: Daytona is going to be something to see. You'll be able to hear it all live on IMSA Radio. I'm Shay Adam. Thanks for coming along.
This program is a production of IMSA and Radio Show Limited. For more, visit radiolemans.com.
The radiolemans.com forum is full of people just like you.
People who have opinions and aren't afraid to share them, just like you.
People who love all forms of motorsport, just like you.
At the track, on the radio, online.
Go to radiolemans.com and click on the forum button.
radiolemans.com.
Behind a lot of glass.
I'd like to point out I volunteered for a job I never volunteered for because it was about Maserati about 10 minutes ago.
You did. That's very, very, very true. I should also like to point out that all the signs are still up, and we backed our big bus into Lewis's box earlier, didn't we?
Well, we couldn't.
In fact, we were straddling between Lewis and
Nico. You couldn't do it yesterday because Lewis parked so badly. He was blocking Nico, pushing off the track.
I put it in at an angle. So sort of pointed towards. Anyway, tonight then is our I Respect Man of the Year awards. We've been voting for a while those. And the first thing we need to do is tell you that the voting for the major categories is now closed. And so we'll be later on in the show tonight. If you're listening to the show and then Excellent. Our second
nominee is Bart Hayden.
Oh, team principal of Rebellion, winners of the privateer category in the FIA World Endurance Championship this year, and beset with tragedy, let's not forget, of having a tragic road accident that took Damon Lewis partway through the season after the round at the Nürburgring. And if you want to vote for Bart, Tim,
you text tweet at Radio Le Mans, hashtag Hayden.
Right, H-A-Y-D.
And our final nominee
And apparently Graham did marry Courtney. I was right in the first place. Yeah. Says Shea Adam. Thank you.
Unlucky, Ashley.
And good evening to Graham Goodwin, who's listening in from the Supreme Headquarters Endurance Division. So the apparel shop is open for business. Perfect timing for Christmas. Get yourself on there, have a look. There's pictures of everything.
Are you modelling it?
No, it's a
sweet section.
Yes. Oh, yes.
One for outerwear.
Yes, which is very good.
One for shirts. And one for hats.
Not the way. No, there's not. Where's the there's a section for hats. Yeah. How many hats?
and we had Action Express.
Action Express was my team of the year. Yes, absolutely. And don't tell us who it was, but was it close? Was it a battle?
No.
It was a runaway winner, was it?
It was close between two of them.
Right. But not for the first place.
No, it was close between first and second. But the others all got very tight.
Right.
So our runner-up, first of all, who I think deserve an honourable mention, Mercedes Formula 1.
Yes, you can only race what time.
And having now examined their car and the McLaren car close up, I can see why
and they won the Drivers' Championship, as well, of course, as winning the GT Drivers' Championship and the GT Manufacturers' Championship. So the major professional championships in endurance racing for World Championship level were all taken by Porsche, and they are our first winners on tonight's I Respect Man of the Year special.
Is there something that Porsche entered and didn't win? Yes, and there is the GT3 Cup Challenge. and Nick Damon.
Yes. No, I am.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
How many people have heard of Benjamin Hoyle?
A couple of weeks ago, his mum, his dad, his partner, and the man who services the car.
And now no one is not talking about him anymore.
Tell me, why are we talking about Benjamin?
He's a Mercedes engineer.
Oh, yes, we are talking about
Why are we talking about
He resigned in April. The code to decrypt the raw race data files.
Right.
Files related to the performance of the compressor.
Right.
Encrypted raw data files containing detailed data about engine performance. And he also uploaded a confidential document to a website. And he saved this information on his personal mobile phone, on a thin micro SD card, on a tablet, and XL HD drive. They also explain that their wife and later
by Ricciardo. What a pointless race. Oh, God. And then and now we're going to have to sit down and get... Then there'd be Toto going, that's it, I'm going to have to sack one of them, don't know who it is. And everyone goes, calm down, no one believes that.
And Nicky allowed some red before to Nicky.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do love those all of them.
Susie wasn't like this in my day.
And Susie walks
So we're going to have to start digging out the crown corpses. That's going to go on forever.
Sochi have said they're not in trouble.
Well, that means
a local
they're in
newspaper in Russia have said they're in trouble.
But that's like saying we're not going to sack the manager. He's got our full confidence, and he'll take us to the end of the season in glory.
Can I point out the bank of V-Beauty? And V-Beauty are not which is a very personal character. you've got two in the middle, you have to. So basically, if Pirelli thinks it's really a bit risky and people are going to be silly and they want, so you had the new Ultra Soft, you had Super Soft and Soft, and they didn't want people just having the two softest compounds because they didn't think it was going to last. They could mandate the two they said were softs, so people don't find themselves without enough time to get in the end.
What happened to Midway?
Go nicely with some of the silver cars, won't they?
Nice.
I would use that if I had a silver car.
And they're re-engineering tyres, so they're actually asking teams to choose tyres they've never run on cars they've never run.
Excellent.
Purple doesn't show up well on TV.
That doesn't matter. It's hardly anyone watching now. It's hardly anyone watching now anyway.
Except in America.
Where more people watching than used to watch, which wasn't very good.
Now 42% survives this year.
So they've now got 100.
I can stick to the midweek multiple specialists. I respect one of the companies then for sports and awards ceremonies in the Middle East. Yes, was Graham.
No, Graham did Manti, didn't he?
No, Johnny suggested Manti.
No, I was Action Express Racing.
It was Graham that did Porsche.
It was Graham for Porsche.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't recount that.
Another one in about 10 to 15 minutes, 12 minutes time.
Right. Okay.
Okay, don't forget you can continue to vote for the listeners award. The three that have made it through to the finals, the only captain where voting is still open. Long-term strategy and done that, a couple of 3 years ago. And what you don't want to be doing is driving one of those guys out. There's always a difficulty for a new manufacturer coming into anything. And the way Nissan had structured their return to the top flight sports car racing is they're trying to take guys head-to-head into different strategy, if you like, to look at what particular type of car they felt, part of the car that they felt would be design, and then we'll get the advantage. then they should be getting involved in the technical commission and influencing the regs, the next set of regs, which may or may not come in 17 or 18 with the new Monaco. Now, Toyota,
they've got a digital flag system. So the track limits driver warning is being done by a big TV screen above the gantry on the start-finish straight, and they're currently giving warning car number 1 as a black and white track standard.
That's the black faulted car that's in the pits.
Even
in the pits, it's definitely left the track.
You haven't got the way of the flag here now.
You're listening to Mid-Week Motorsport. By the way, the RS1 Renault is running in the GT3 category. 1 and 55 in 2000. Track limit is a slightly shorter version of the Well, he's got the equivalent to a knighthood as well in
Denmark.
In Denmark, yeah.
Sir Tom. Hi, Sir Tom.
It's not quite like that, but yes. And we are hearing that he's definitely the Dubai 24 so concentrating on the defence of the Bathurst to 12 hours. And the Young Driver of the Year nominees were as follows. Charles Leclerc, Spencer Pigot, Charlie Robertson, Jamie Chadwick and Max Verstappen. Who did you put in this? Max Verstappen. 21. It's not about you.
It's all about me. You stole that job.
It's about you. 5 nominees, 5 young talents who have had a fantastic season. Who has been chosen? And
at one point, you had 5 minutes. If I double to the 4 minutes, 5 minutes. We do still have a time for the third one. Charlie Robertson.
who would you rather go? Let's list racing drivers you'd like to go for a beer with. Not many of them, possibly outside Jensen.
Well, it doesn't be Max Verstappen. He's not old enough.
He's not old enough, is he?
He's 18 now. So he can't have a beer in America.
Okay.
And no one's allowed a beer here. So.
Still to come, we will reveal the other winners. Shall we do the still to come? Well, we have 3 more categories. We do. We'll talk about that when we get to. Still more news to come, of course, but it is the Man of the Year show, so that means we've got 3 more awards still to reveal to you. The Car of the Year, will it be McLaren, Porsche, Lamborghini or Mercedes-Benz? The Man of the Year, Mark Webber, Timo Bernhard, Sebastian Bourdais, Valentino Rossi and Nick Tandy, all in the chance of that one. The awards have closed, but not for the listener awards. Hashtag Bush, hashtag you, or hashtag Rainbow. I respect the listeners, awards, and tweet those immediately, please, to because you're not working for us anymore.
You're now into the Hall of Fame.
We'll have a word with the responsible adult about this, and I think a consultation with the listener about how this.
Also bring in Daily Sports Car as well.
I think that's a very good idea, and of course we won't do it at the end of the year. We would do it at one time, because that's because how we use
a token Maserati fan in the commentary box.
Not a token fan, I'm an actual fan.
You're the only fan in our
team. Classic Maserati. I'm trying. John has been trying to get 5 months to 2 months.
Yes, you've been there and done that.
I've got to twice and thought to, and loved them both the whole time.
proud to report the sales marketing sport manager Maserati says the World Challenge is an excellent achievement. Maserati and the teams applying to would like to race with a mark that is steeped in character and history. The budget's acceptable. The series are competitive and professional. There you go then. I like it.
Let me throw some names at you.
Go on then.
Right.
First of all, someone who potentially could have been nominated as Woman of the Year this year.
Mm-hmm.
Christina Nielsen.
Yes, could be. And what do we do? Comment on that one name, or are we waiting for someone?
Christina Nielsen.
More air miles than anyone next year. Oh, sorry. Never mind. However, her plan is to become only the second daughter of a Le Mans competitor to go to Le Mans this year. She's added Le Mans to a comprehensive lineup of races, including 2 seasons in research. So, the European Le Mans Series races is what you mentioned earlier, and Le Mans as well, which makes you the driver of the Red Eye Detroit
Maybe Ollie doesn't live in Yardley Hazington.
But the question is, if Nick Tandy lived 5 doors down from Ollie Gavin, who would be that particular village's greatest sports car driver?
Well, that's what I'm trying to guess at, yes.
And I think you'd have to say, at the moment, it's pretty much a draw.
Yeah, because
an overall win against class wins.
Ollie's never had a chance to go for an overall win.
Tandy, that factors in the team this year.
But look at the...
Ollie's got the history.
Background,
but he's older.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd probably say at the moment pretty much too close. You probably go wrong.
I don't know actually. I think it's hard. I think. Well, they recently did. How far Raceway, by the way, was originally share based in the 1920s, built my nomination for 2 reasons. One, because it gave us the best radio messages from the drivers. 2, because it was so technically advanced that the 2 world champions produced as a and they were completely the Lamborghini Huracan was Farmer. The GT3 and because of its amazing version of the Porsche 992 last year. How did the voting go to?
In joint second place.
Joint
everything
second
else.
Everything else. Everything else was in second. So it was that close at the back end of the field. So there is one massive overall victory. Or was everything else very close and it was a tiny bit to the lead?
With 86% of the vote.
The car of the year for 2015 on Midweek Motorsport and the Irish Break Man of the Year show is... No. Randomly what? It is...
It's dominant, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Come on.
What no, it is the Porsche 919.
The Porsche 919 990 for my grid.